Hey guys, what's up? My name's Moose from Grandma's House Audio. Check us out, grandmashouseaudio.com. I wanted to talk to you more about, say you're trying to get into recording and you want to figure out how to do your own studio, probably at home. I'm just going to share some tips with you on how I did it, and hopefully it'll just help you out on how to, not saying what I did was the right way. I just want to kind of express like how I did it and what I thought I did well and what I thought I didn't do well, and hopefully it'll just help you out. But there's three things that I kind of want to point out today. One is, I know a lot of people always think, oh, should I go to sound school or should I not go to sound school? And I don't know, people think maybe college is for doofuses, and some people are all about it. For me, I did go to sound school. I graduated from there like 5 years ago. I think I was 21 when I started. I'm almost 28 now. I'm not really the kind of person that can, or at least at that time, could focus on a video tutorial or read a full-page article about what a compressor is or how to EQ and stuff like that. I know when I got out of school, I thought for sure, like, oh, once I get out of college, like, because one of the things that colleges promise you is like, hey, like, you go to our school, you're going to get tons of learning and experience and information, and once you graduate, you're going to find a job. And that's just kind of how they sell college at a lot of places. For me, right away, I didn't get like some crazy big gig or anything like that. I was still doing studio stuff, but I definitely still had a side job. I don't anymore. I haven't for almost 2 years, but I think going to college is something that you kind of have to figure out on your own. I used to get depressed like when I first got out of college because I was like, well, what the heck? Like, they told me I was going to find a job and I was going to have this amazing gig and I was going to be producing these awesome bands and everybody's going to want to record with me and stuff like that. I think that was half, the college selling me on that, which I think is probably just not true. I mean, you probably don't need to go to college unless you're doing something like being a doctor or something like that. The other half was probably, just me being stupid and overexcited that, I had all this information and I was ready, but really I kind of wasn't. I mean, I still had a lot to learn and I'm still learning, and I think you kind of need to go into the industry with that type of mentality that you're never going to know everything and that you're always willing to learn. But for me, I think, going to school was a good thing. I definitely don't regret it. I know I felt, like I said earlier, that I definitely may have thought otherwise at times, but I mean, it worked out for me. So now I think that, with the information that's out there definitely wasn't as much as there was before in 2007 when I started. But between all the videos that are online and articles and all that stuff, I mean, you can definitely self-teach yourself. I think both ways are good. I think everybody's just different and everybody learns different ways. So, I definitely think it's worth checking out. If you think that that's what will work for you, then by all means. But definitely go in willing to learn and prepared. Take notes, get to know people. I mean, there's people that, students, lab instructors, and even course instructors that I've gotten to know that I still talk to this day that give me advice, and I know it's going to be solid because of some of the people that they've worked with and some of the work that they've done and put out and stuff like that. So, but doesn't mean you can't do that being self-taught. I mean, if you're going to self-teach yourself, you might just have to work a little harder to get to know people that have, done awesome things in the industry or whatever. I don't know. I hope it don't sound conceited or anything. I'm just saying that, I think networking is a big part of it, but do the research and, try to see what works best for you. If you're like me, you don't have a lot of money, I mean, try to self-teach yourself for a little bit, One thing I would warn is that any schmuck can make a video or a website and put information out there, whether it's right or wrong. You just kind of have to experiment and see what works for you. I mean, somebody might put a video tutorial out there of how to EQ a kick drum. That doesn't mean that's how you EQ a kick drum. That doesn't mean that's how everybody that records a band with a drummer EQs their kick drum. I mean, so many people do so many things different ways, and all that really matters is the end result, right? So the information that's out there, try a whole bunch of different things. You might make up your own thing that somebody didn't put out there yet, so definitely try to do all that. All right, so the second thing I want to talk about is planning. I think it's one of the most important things, and what I mean by that is take notes, write everything down, make a chart, use Excel, make your own chart, graph paper, or whatever, I don't know. But write down all this stuff. And if you're like me, up until recently, I hate writing stuff down. I hate tracking things like hours and stuff like that. But when you write it down, you can always look back at it, see what worked for you, see what didn't work for you, see how far you've come and how much you've done, which is kind of inspiring for yourself, especially when you get down, because you can be like, whoa, I worked on all this stuff. Like, I haven't figured out how to EQ a kick drum yet, maybe, but I've tried all this stuff and I figured out all the things that don't work yet. Planning stage, what I guess I really want to talk about on it is, this is my studio. It's in my basement of my house. It's nothing crazy. I mean, I guess it kind of looks nice. I have some nice paint and panels on the walls and stuff. It took me a long time to get here. When I first started recording bands in my basement, it looked just like a basement. And that's okay. A lot of people are doing home studio stuff now. A lot of bands are going towards the home studio side of recording and stuff like that. It doesn't mean that you can't do it. There's a lot of successful people out there that record really good music that does really well out of their home studio. The technology's there, and it's more affordable for the guys that don't have money. I mean, you don't have to spend millions of dollars on all this analog gear and acoustical treated rooms that are perfectly acoustically balanced and stuff like that, like your control room and stuff like that. You can even do it out of your spare bedroom and stuff like that, or in your apartment or whatever. Knowing what I know now, I wish I would have set up my rooms a little differently, and I wish I would have planned out what gear I was buying and stuff like that better, because I started building walls. I didn't really know what I was doing when I was building stuff and how I should do it, but I ended up tearing a lot of the walls and stuff down like 2 or 3, sometimes even 4 times, just because I figured out a better way to build the wall. If I would have planned that stuff out and went out and got the information first, wrote it down, and then did that, I'd probably be a lot better off. I would have saved a lot of money. I wouldn't have had to redo stuff. I would have saved a lot of time, One thing that I feel like I did do right, and I would recommend to anybody that asks me, don't go out and get loans or credit cards or music store credit cards and stuff like that. I mean, if you have a good side job and you're able to pay that stuff off and real quick and stuff like that, I mean, if that works for you, that's great. But for me, when I had a side job for a while, I budgeted, whatever was left over after I paid my bills and stuff. I mean, I didn't go out and drink or anything like that. I really just, buckled down and was like, okay, I'm not going to be doing this. I'm not going to be, buying cigs or alcohol or whatever. I'm going to use all this extra money to buy studio gear. Maybe at the end of the month after I paid all my bills and stuff, I might only have like $50 or $100 or something, but I just waited and saved up, and I just paid for it for cash, and it was mine. There was nothing else to worry about. I didn't have to worry about making an extra payment or recording an extra band or picking up extra hours or anything like that. And then as I slowly started doing that, I started to get more bands. My sound started to get better, and then I was able to save up more money to put towards the studio. Because when I had a side job, all the money I made from the studio from recording a band, which might have been maybe one band a month, recording 1 or 2 songs, which wasn't that much. I just put it all towards the studio stuff, the studio gear, getting microphones and cables and panels in my wall, so everything was hardwired. I didn't have to run cables under the doors and all that other stuff, and building soundproof walls and stuff, which my stuff still isn't completely soundproof. There's a huge difference. You can barely hear drums out here when I'm sitting in there and the doors are closed, but I did the best that I could with the basement. It's only, I think, 6 feet tall in here, and I couldn't really do floating floors or ceilings and all that stuff. Just save up your money, figure out what you want to get, save up for it, make goals for it to save up, and get it. Don't get me wrong, it's gonna, honestly, thinking about that, it's gonna take forever, and it's gonna suck. Like, you're gonna think about, like, dang, like, it's been a year and all I've gotten was like 2 microphones and a preamp or something. And once you kind of get to the point like where I am, not saying that I'm like this recording god or anything, but it's been 5 years and I think I have a pretty nice place and I have some pretty good gear and it's all mine, you know what I mean? I don't owe anybody money. It's mine. And now that I've been recording full time, I don't really have to. When I started out recording full time, I didn't have to make as much as I did at my old job because I kept my bills low by not adding any, payments for loans or stuff like that for studio gear. You know what I mean? And that's another thing too in my personal life. I kept my bills as low as possible. I know that a lot of people, it's worse for others and stuff like that. But I literally just kind of like I gave up having a car, which eliminated. It was just an old, junky car, but it eliminated $30 a month for insurance, And I live in the Northeast, so in the winter it gets pretty cold. I heat my house with a wood burner. Not everybody has access to like firewood or can heat their house that way, but since I did that, it saved me I have an older house, so it saved me like $3,000 a winter on doing that. And granted, I had to invest in a chainsaw and invest my time in cutting wood and to make sure I could heat my house through the winter. I mean, but then I didn't have a gas bill, and I still don't have a gas bill. So, and those are just examples. I'm sure everybody has a different situation. Try to figure out what you can do, and try to keep out of that mindset like, oh man, like it's really gonna suck not having AC like in the summer. I mean, unless you live in a place like Georgia or Florida or something like that, some place where it's like super hot, or Pacific Island, or I don't know, like wherever it's really hot. I mean, you might not even need it. Just think about the future. You know what I mean? It might be a little uncomfortable for you now for a year or two, or maybe just even a couple months or something. I don't know. But later on, once you get to a point where you can record your music or whatever full time and your bills are still low, you're going to be so glad that you did something like that. Okay, so the last and final thing I want to talk about is kind of 2 things actually. One is networking and finding your niche. When you're recording bands or you're in a band and stuff like that, or anything you're doing, I mean, when you have, when other people have good things to say about you and stuff, even if you're not even the best in your area and stuff like that, but you're easy to work with or whatever, people have things good to say about you, I mean, that's what's going to help you get more work. And then the more people you know, too, I mean, it always makes things easier to get things done. And one thing I kind of want to talk about with that is, when I first started, there's a lot of other guys that I know that have home studios around here, and there's other studios in the city. I live in near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so, there's some professional studios down in the city, and a lot of guys around here with home studios. I always felt like I was in competition, especially the guys that live closer to me that have home studios. But the thing is that I'm kind of not really in competition with them. I mean, yeah, I guess that we both have a studio and we're both trying to get as much business as possible, but the thing about recording is we're doing an art. So there's things that I'm better at than my friends that have home studios, and there's things that they're better at that I suck at, you know what I mean? That's one thing that, kind of relates to networking too, because if you have say you're really good at recording jazz bands, but you never really listen to jazz or anything. If you're friends with those other guys and they know that you're good at recording jazz, they might know somebody that comes to them and they're like, hey, we're in a jazz band. We want to record our jazz. And they're like, you know what? I'm actually not that good at it, but my friend down the road, his name is whatever. He's excellent at recording jazz. Here's some of his stuff. And they're like, oh, okay, cool, thanks. And what's good about that is and I do that too with, a band will come to me and they're like, hey man, we're like this kind of band. And I'm like, hey, you know what? Like I like that kind of music, but I'm not the best at recording and producing it. But my buddy is really good at it, and that kind of, you build that relationship and you guys both kind of move your studio up. And then you guys are friends too, and you can share techniques and stuff. If you become friends with a guy that has a studio, and he's really good at EQing a kick drum, like I was saying earlier. you guys are friends. I mean, he can help you out with that. And then it works both ways, too. I mean, he might be like, hey, you know what? Like, I really like the way your snares have been sounding lately. Like, how do you do that, And you share the information, and then, you guys are friends, and you've helped him out. He's helping you out, and, you guys build it together. I mean, businesses other than recording studios do that, too. And who knows? I mean, down the road, you guys might end up opening a studio together, buying a building and not having a home studio anymore. And then you have two huge networks that are put together, and because you guys are friends and doing stuff together, and maybe you work well together or whatever, then now look where you're at. And then the other thing I was talking about, like finding your niche, might be something that you never realized what it was, or maybe you already know. Maybe it's just the type of music that you like or that your band plays or something, so you're just really familiar with it. That just kind of goes with what I was just saying about the networking thing. Because if you know your niche, if you know that you're good at like jazz and pop punk and southern rock, but this other guy's really good at blues and heavy metal, and put those together and send people the right projects, and they'll send you the right projects and stuff like that, which is important, because if you're not very good at recording a certain genre, you want to send them to the place that will do it and do it good and do it well, because you want to try to always put out the best stuff you can, which does, don't get bent out of shape if, you try recording a metal band or something, you find you're not very good at it. I mean, just always try to stay positive and just, let the bands know, like, say they come back to you, say they did like the recordings, and it's like, hey, you know what, man, I think my friend, I know I did your last record, but I think my friend down the street would really do it much better, and, I'd hate to lose the money, but, I want you guys to have a good record and a good sounding record and stuff, and you never know, maybe they just want to go with you because they're going for that style recording or whatever. So anyways, I hope all that stuff helps. If you have any questions, leave a comment or email me, joshmoose@grandmashouseaudio.com.